And do you think that the team formation that is now actively taking place in the Mar-a-Lago residence and around Trump is for our benefit or for our detriment? It is not yet clear. And which names surprised you the most? Because I see that American society is surprised by many. But in principle, listen, I did not have high expectations from the formation of President Trump's team. So I am definitely not disappointed. They are, let's say, if we are talking about some key positions, that will have at least minimal subjectivity. Minimal. Because it should be understood that Trump is recruiting his team on the principle of absolute loyalty. Loyalty and lack of serious ambitions that could pull the blanket over himself. So we will not see either Trump or Pompeo in the team, primarily for these reasons. That's why all the people who are most loyal to Trump will hold these positions. The Secretary of State, he didn't have any harsh anti-Ukrainian rhetoric. He was more in line with the Trump campaign, it's true, but in general, he was fine. The National Security Advisor is also not bad. He was a congressman before that, and in principle he was quite good. And in general, he didn't have any particularly negative statements about Ukraine. He was more focused on China and the confrontation between China and Iran. There was no negative stuff about Ukraine. But again, these are all people who will just do Trump's bidding. He doesn't take any big authorities, party bonuses, who could have influenced him to make a decision somewhere and so on. His administration will be completely different from the one that was there the last time, if only for the simple reason that everyone left him then. And it is not a fact that they would even agree to return now. So well, here is who you should really pay attention to and think about what will happen next. First of all, Elon Musk. Because many have already hastened to christen him the heir to Andrei Borisovich. But it is quite possible that he will repeat the fate of the other Andrei Bogdan. Because somewhere along the line, American society is beginning to perceive their extremely frivolous closeness as strange. And there's a lot of talk about how Elon Musk is influencing Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, first of all, a man who doesn't really like to share power. And secondly, he doesn't really like anyone to think that he's sharing power, or to see it, obviously. So we'll see what else comes of this, because now a Department of Government performance evaluation is being created, which will be headed by Elon Musk, but together with Ramaswamy. So it's like this, an attempt to balance this story, although in fact, I think he will play a major role there. Maxim, thank you. For now, we'll leave it here. It's clear that everyone will follow Trump's lead. As many Western media report, he's gaining loyalists, even from those who didn't always agree with him, but showed loyalty and trust. In the end, the main thing for us is that our interests aren't severely harmed or played into the hands of pro-Russian forces. Analysts note that these politicians aren't necessarily pro-Ukrainian, but more isolationist, calling for aid to be reduced or stopped altogether. They believe the U.S. should focus on its own issues, not global problems, and act as a powerful internal force rather than an external one. Meanwhile, Trump, aiming to restore the U.S. as a world leader, says he will work hard to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, emphasizing this during an event in Florida. Maksym, he will work harder with Russia, with Ukraine, and this will be a language of blackmail and ultimatums, in particular to Russian dictators, and maybe pressure on us for concessions. The issue of the Russian aggressor is still unresolved, but we're at the stage of negotiations and have a chance to push for a Ukrainian victory. The fact that this information has recently come out about the fourth or fifth point of victory, which, by the way, I said on the very first day that the president addressed the Verkhovna Rada, this was done for Trump, as Western analysts took time to discover the news. It makes sense, given Trump's focus on reducing troops and encouraging Europe to invest more in its own security. As a businessman, he also praised Ukrainian President Zelensky, calling him the best trader in the world. Which is not bad in principle, but just an assessment of how things have come to this, and why is it important? Well, because they don't know anything about Ukraine, Donald Trump, he understands what Russia is. He knows about Russia. He has been to Russia, and he was a businessman, and he knows a lot about what is going on. Again, this is something that is a very correct measure that we explain that we have huge lithium deposits, which is extremely important. Now we have huge shale gas reserves, and Donald Trump is a fan of shale gas production, and there is fracking technology. He has started to implement it in the States and so on, and say, look, there are billions here. Trillions of dollars are probably lying underground, just under the land that is currently occupied by Russian troops. And imagine the situation if you give away not just our territory, but you give them energy dominance. Because lithium, which will be used for lithium batteries, shale gas, other minerals, rare earths, Russia can extract, but only if these territories remain under our control. Your companies will be able to come in, they will get all the benefits, some concessions, some help, whatever. There will be no corruption, there will be some special economic zone, whatever. It will be very beneficial for you, it will be beneficial for us, it will be beneficial for you. Everything will be great, and you will actually give Russia the tools to gain hegemony in the region. And they will further increase the dependence of European countries on their energy resources. So this is one of the main points that we can sell now, that our troops will then replace the Americans at military bases.
До отримання гегемонії в регіоні. І вони ще більше посилять залежність там європейських тих же країн від саме від своїх.
This is also extremely important. It will solve many problems. Americans will save money for everyone. Their military will be at home. Our military, who will be extremely numerous after the war, will get decent jobs. They will not be somewhere in hot spots.
Військові будуть вдома, наші військові, яких зараз буде надзвичайно багато після війни, отримають достойну роботу, вони ж не будуть десь там в гарячих точках знаходитися, будуть у Франції,
They will be in France, Germany, Poland, and on American military bases, receiving decent material support. So this is an extremely important situation where everyone wins, except for the Russian Federation. This is definitely positive. Because if American companies come in and replace Chinese companies, it will create benefits for Trump, and it could also lead to a weakening of China. However, the current U.S. President Biden is currently meeting with Xi as the leader of China. How concerned is this Xi really now? And can there be something so important discussed between him and Biden that will change the course of the Russian-Ukrainian war or some White House policy? I think Xi is extremely concerned because he realizes that, yes, there is a trade war somewhere that took place during Donald Trump's first term in office. It didn't do much damage to China, but it's quite possible that now they will act more cunningly and decisively. And now there may be really more serious consequences for China, and Xi Jinping may somehow not have time to do something in this situation. So again, a lot depends on Europe, by the way, because Europe may now be more cooperative with the United States, a little bit stressed, and agree to jointly launch a serious sanctions strike and some kind of customs restrictions on China. Maksym, thank you for your insights, time, and positive energy. See you soon, and take care. International expert Maksym Nesvitaylov joined us to discuss Trump's personnel policy and his approach to the Russian-Ukrainian war, stressing the need for both sides to stop. It's not ideal that Trump is addressing this mainly to Putin, who isn't stopping, but it's positive that he wants to resolve the Russian-Ukrainian war. We hope it aligns with pro-Ukrainian interests, though there's a risk it might not be fully so. However, it will definitely not be pro-Russian or pro-American. What we offer is clearly pro-Ukrainian. Trump might not even notice, but we continue our fundraising and support efforts for our defenders. You can find a QR code with a link to active methods of how you can contribute, including monobanks, private and other methods, by clicking on this QR code you see on your screens. And I will remind you that we are raising UAH 380,000 for a Mercedes Sprinter for our defenders, for the Special Forces of the Main Intelligence Directorate. We have already raised 43%, for which we cannot but be grateful to you. Thank you. Let's continue in the same spirit, please. While geopoliticians hesitate, bargain, and exchange ultimatums, Ukraine's armed forces are not waiting. They are pushing the enemy off our land, strengthening our position and territorial gains, so that we can negotiate from a position of strength. Russia will not dictate terms to us. In Florida, Trump expressed regret over the deaths in Ukraine, regardless of whether they are soldiers or people in cities, CNN reports. Trump emphasized that his administration would prioritize the Russian-Ukrainian war, though many analysts believe his main foreign policy challenge will be China. He aims to weaken China by restricting trade, either through confrontation or war. However, the Russia-Ukraine conflict will remain a key focus for Trump, who promised to end the war within 24 hours, though many now view this as figurative, with the war likely lasting months. Trump says we're going to work very hard with Russia and Ukraine. This war has to stop. Russia and Ukraine have to stop, said the newly elected American president. We will work on this. The USA does not stop helping us. The United States intends to deliver all the promised weapons to Ukraine before Biden leaves office, apparently taking into account various challenges and possible antics from Donald Trump. The Pentagon stated that the U.S. will work to provide Ukraine with $7.1 billion in military aid under the Presidential Drawdown Authority program before President Biden leaves office on January 20th, 2025. This was reported by a Pentagon spokeswoman. The president wants to spend all the allocated funds before his term ends. We will work very hard to make this happen. You have seen us deploy very large packages from the very beginning, and you have seen us deploy a number of packages on a fairly frequent basis. I expect that in the coming months, you will see the continued allocation of arms packages. According to the Pentagon, as of November 12th, the United States has $9 billion left to provide Ukraine with weapons, ammunition, and equipment, of which $7.1 billion is available under the Presidential Drawdown Authority Program. And $4.3 billion remained of the package approved by Congress, which amounted to almost 61.68 cents a billion. Additionally, about $2.2 billion remains under the USAAI program for military orders from American manufacturers for Ukraine. The collapse of Ukraine would be a major humiliation for the U.S., and the former minister warns the Trump administration against expecting a quick or Russia-favorable settlement. If Washington stops supporting Ukraine during Trump's term, it will be a greater humiliation for the U.S. than the Afghanistan withdrawal. This opinion was expressed by former British Foreign Secretary William Hague in a podcast by The Telegraph. If Trump's administration allows Ukraine to collapse, it will damage U.S. credibility. Trump criticizes Biden for his decisions on Afghanistan, but if he leads to the collapse of Ukraine, it will be a much greater humiliation. It is in Trump's own interest to support the West's strength in the world, says Haig. The former minister warned the Trump administration against settling the war on terms favorable to Russia. Freezing the war on the contact line would mean laying the groundwork for a new war, which would lead to another one, because Putin would come back for what's left. It's clear he wants all of Ukraine, or at least so much of it, that what remains cannot function as a sovereign state, cannot join the EU or NATO, cannot take loans or receive funds to rebuild. In other words, it cannot be a viable, functioning state. Without security guarantees from the US and NATO, Ukraine won't survive as a state and will be unable to stop Putin when he rebuilds his forces and returns for the rest. It is naive to say that we will establish peace in 24 hours, but this will not help if you are building a new war. Hawk warns that if Trump halts aid to Ukraine, the EU and UK will have to increase their support. This assistance is temporary and cannot replace American support, as it's not just about money, but technology. Without American satellites and software, Ukraine wouldn't have survived. European countries lack the arsenal needed to support Ukraine in a full-scale modern war, the British diplomat said. This applies not only to Ukraine. No country can't defend without U.S. help. Hawk said, a country under sustained attack would struggle to survive without the United States' goodwill and generosity. Trump's election victory has caused anxiety in Ukraine. Russia advances slowly in many parts of the Eastern Front, while Ukraine faces a shortage of human resources. ABC News analyzes that Trump's victory in the U.S. elections on November 5th has caused both anxiety and hope in Ukraine, with the possibility that it could end Russia's war. Several Ukrainian officials and public figures expressed hope that Trump's election win could provide a chance to end the war. These sentiments reflect increasing disappointment with the Biden administration among Ukrainians. Many believe that the current U.S. president's policies provide just enough for Ukraine to survive, but not enough to win or force the enemy to negotiate seriously. Ukrainians are grateful for the assistance, but express frustration with Biden's restraint. This includes restrictions on certain weapons and delays in aid due to exaggerated fears of escalating the war. A drone commander in eastern Ukraine told ABC News, Trump's coming to power has given Ukraine hope. He is too straightforward a person who will not pretend to help us like the Democrats did. He is stronger than Biden and is ready to make strong decisions. Many Ukrainians fear that Trump may cut aid, but some are willing to take the risk, as they believe it is better than continuing down a path that is bleeding the country dry and is unlikely to lead to the return of all Ukrainian territory. Russia continues to advance slowly on the Eastern Front, while Ukraine faces a critical shortage of human resources. He wants all of Ukraine, or at least enough of it, to prevent the rest from functioning as a sovereign state, unable to join the EU, NATO, or secure rebuilding funds. A senior Ukrainian official told ABC News that talks now could be a fatal mistake, risking permanent territorial loss and insufficient future protection. Do you understand why Russia agrees to negotiate? They want to take a break and regroup. The Russian dictator can use any ceasefire to rearm and then strike again and again, the unnamed official warned.